Hi, it's Pete the Bumbling Modeler back in. So the last two videos which I've put on YouTube now, so they should be available as we speak. We talked about the tools and equipment we bought, why we've done it the way we've done it, and doing it at the cheapest price, etc. And then we've brush painted the internal faces of this little Brengun carrier and a panel underneath. I wasn't going to bother painting the underneath because you're never going to see it for what we're doing, but it gives us an area of paint the same as on the top to try different techniques without stuffing up what we've done on the top half of it. So we've had to assemble a little bit more equipment today. So we've got that's the dark green paint. We need the rubber black, which is we've got our rubber black paint. That's for a different model again. I've got me disorganized. I've got some thinners. I've got the bronze green we've used and the yellow. So what we're going to look at this time is painting the tires against the wheels, because that's the way you do that is a bit more long-winded if you haven't got an airbrush. Normally you put a circular template around it and just spray the inside, but we can't do that. We're going to put, or attempt to put, a little bit of a wash on the inside so some of this detail stands out a little bit. The brush we've got is probably a bit coarse for that, but if you're buying a full pack of brushes like I did, you might be able to find ones of a slightly smaller size, but we'll give it a go and see what happens. And we'll try and put a bit of black paint inside these grills, so that they stand out a little bit. And then when we finish all that, we'll attempt a bit of dry brushing, so we highlight some of the details inside by painting a slightly lighter colour. More of that in a bit. I think we'll have to let this paint dry before we do that, so although it'll be quick for you, I'll be doing the pin wash tonight and playing about with the dry brushing tomorrow. So just mix myself up a little bit of paint and then we'll get back. Okay, so off camera I've got some rubber black paint in this little pipette dish. This in the background is just normal tap water to wash your brush out later on, don't worry about that. And I've put a few blobs of thinner in it, and I just wanted it to thin out enough that it flows nicely. So I don't know if you can pick it up, there's a little ridge around this wheel, and that's the bit you want pretty solid. So we're not after full coverage on this at this moment. It'll be two coats, so we want a coat that'll go around and just let capillary action pull it around to that rim. Probably needs a bit of water as well, actually. Let capillary action pull it around the rim. That's gonna more disorganized. You can tell it's been a long day. And then we'll get a nice neat line, and then we can just paint around that later on. So it's not a painting method really. Let's get my eye magnifiers on as well. So what we're really looking at doing is just bringing the brush up to that edge, and you probably need a bit more on the brush. Oops, a bit more on the brush there. You want to load it up so it flows nicely, and this might need a bit of water in it actually. It's a bit. It works slightly better if I put a nudge of water in. This is just normal tap water. Just keep a little squeezy bottle of it here so I'm not running in and out every 2 minutes. You want it to sort of flow around without you touching too much, and then you don't risk overdoing the line. So all we want to do is just bring it in again. And you're not worried about the face of the tyres or anything, it's just this inside edge. All the colours on this are, I'm on camera there, sorry. All the colours in this are remarkably similar, so it doesn't stand out quite as well. But it's the capillary action of the paint that's doing all the work on that. And also, because I'm bone idle as well, I tend to not worry too much, have one good face and the inside face you never see. So this is what we're basically playing now. That's flowing quite nicely, and you have to be a bit careful with Tamiya paints. They do tend to flow nicely at first. Then stop flowing nicely with very little warning, and it's worth giving a little stir every now and again because the pigments settle, especially when they're thinned out. That's doing it now. It's just flowing nicely there. So we're not really doing anything other than touching the brush and just pulling it round and letting capillary action do the rest. Okay, so I'll switch the camera off and get those done because you've seen what I'm talking about now and it's all a bit dull, and then I'll be back in a second. Okay, that's done, and it was about 10 minutes of work. It's not a major job. As a kit to demonstrate, I'm going to regret this. We get this bit of tat off there. I've got a lot of sawdust on my bench for another project. Right, as a kit to demonstrate things on, this probably isn't the best because the blacks and the greens look too close together. But it's also a kit we want to build because it's fun. So are we bothered by that? I don't know. So what I've done, painted both sides of these wheels. Practice on something like this first because these wheels can go either way. They're double-sided. You get used to it, and then if you've got a side you've made a bit of a mess on, you can put that on the inside face and you never see it. So by the time you get to these that only go one way, you'll have the paint flowing really nicely and you'll be okay. So that was the first coat, and we say it's just forced paint up around that rim. The second coat will go around the outer face of it, and we won't go that far in because it's quite dark in that rim because all the paint concentrates there. So that's worked out okay for us. We just touch up the outer edges, but Tamiya paint does drag. You think it's dry, but it's not. So I'd leave it 24 hours before you gave a second coat. Otherwise, you'll start to lift the stuff you put on and it'll look a bit horrible. So while we got the black paint out, with the wash, I was gonna just do a black wash. I think I still will do a black wash on everything to highlight the detail. Then we might put a subsequent dusty wash over the top as though it's got dusty. Then when we dry brush, it'll all sort of blend together. So we can use a really watery version. This is a dusty wash just to try and highlight some areas where dust would accumulate inside these things. But we've got our mix and it's still vaguely all right. If you put too much on, by the way, you should use a paper towel. I just put a blob on it in my hand and touch it on. It'll suck up the excess rather than leaving a thick layer. Don't do it on your hand. That's what I do. Do as I say, not as I do, I suppose. Right. So a couple of areas you want quite a heavy black is this grill here. So we're just going to run it into the area. It's still not full thickness, so it is flowing in there. Maybe a little bit of water in there. We can go over the lot because we're going to dry brush over the lot later on. So as long as we don't go too far outside the lines of it. I know I've gone over that central bar, but that's just doesn't matter. That way it's gone over the central bar. You can always get your cotton bud and just give it a little bit of a wipe. And that just highlights it. When that dries as a matte, that'll highlight that panel there, and we'll dry brush over the top of it lightly as well, so we'll get some of the grill back in a lighter shade. So that just sort of enhances that sort of thing. We've got the instruments and switches in the instrument panel. Again, it's easier to paint these with a slightly more watery paint. You might need a couple of coats, but all we need to do then, in a similar way to what we did in the on the wheels is just touch. You're not really going to see these when the model's together. So just touching those inner faces. We can do something else to highlight them later on. And that'll just give you the black. Faces of the dials, and it'll be as round as we're going to get it. This little switch box is probably all black, so we just... So they're all blocked in, they're okay. I don't think we've got any more of the little grills and things we need to fill in. So now we need to think about washing. I don't know whether to make the wash a little bit lighter so it's like a dirty, grimy, dusty colour out of the box. Let's take a chance and do that. So one of the things I'm going to do is you want the wash to flow and water to have a capillary action. There's a lot of water in that. So we're not going to get a lot. But this is standard washing up liquid, and we're going to put the smallest of... That's probably too much, actually. I'll put the smallest of drops in there, which is that. And that'll just break up the surface tension you get on water, particularly if you're doing this with the Humbrol paints that are all water-based. This is an alcohol base, so that should flow a bit more smoothly. And we'll do it as we were going to originally. We'll make it as a little pin wash to highlight some of the details, and then we'll lighten it with a bit of sand later on. So a bit more water, because you want this really watery so it flows. And you don't want to see the effect of what you're doing this. What you want to do is know it's there, but you don't realise how it got there, if that makes sense. It's I should do. Always cut my paper towels into this sort of size, because I tend to find you only use the edges often. So you waste a lot of paper towel unless you cut them all down to start with, and you take up less space on the bench. So we'll just go on the underside of this, where it's not going to matter if it goes horribly wrong. And what we want to be doing is just... No, we're not watery enough yet. Let's squeeze a little bit. It's not flowing very well at all. We want to... It should do with a smaller brush, as I say. No, that's no good. And this is why it's good to have the underside to play with, to be honest. Maybe a bit more, just to lubricate it all up. Now, this is what we're looking for. See the way I touch it, it's just tracking down the lines in my hand. That's what we wanted to do on the model. So we did need a bit more washing up liquid, a bit more water. Let's say the underside is... Let's try it here. Sorry, I keep wandering off camera, I'm sure. Oh, I'd say still a bit watery, actually, a bit thick. It's working on the larger panels, not so much on the rivets. So even more water. It is. I mean, normally you buy... I normally use oil paints for this, to be honest, which is one thing which makes... Oh, no, see, I think I'm picking up... I didn't pick up stuff from the bottom before. So if you use an oil paint, it flows a lot more easy. You can manipulate it a lot more. Acrylics aren't ideal for this. Let's try that. No, I'm not getting the flow I want, unfortunately. That's getting better. So then you can make that on there. Well, it's gathering around the low points on those rivets and down those panel lines, and that's the sort of effect you want on the inside. So when you've got these stowage boxes, you want to sort of highlight little bits of detail by just touching your brush on it. Now acrylics do dry too quickly as well. The oils you take off straight away, but get that and just wipe off a bit of excess, and you're starting to see you've got a black ridge round that ammunition box there. And if you do that, it's not flowing quite as I'd like. I'm not taking it right from the bottom of the that's okay. From the bottom of that tray. Zooming in on camera. We should really have a look. It's just making those little ridges stand out a little bit more, which is what we're really looking for. And as it dries, obviously, it'll dry back in less of a vigorous way. And what we're going to do is just go around the whole of the inside of this fighting compartment with this little pin wash. And so if you get it right, use a bit more soap as well. If you get it right, you won't know it's been done, but you'll know it hasn't. It'll be one of these things where it sort of stands out as being subtle, but there. So this is the first time in years I've done it without using oil paints, but we didn't buy oil paints, so we can't use them. So again, it's just shifted the colour slightly, and you're getting this ever so slight build up on the raised areas. So we're just going to go around. Say this is in the back of the driver's cab. There's that bit there. Let's get a bit, and it just sort of tides up around that. Just highlights these areas. I think the seat goes on that, but around here where we've got that, that bit of a raised ledge there, and you'll for those rivets we can just paint right across and not worry too much about anything else. And then just blend in what you've got with the cotton bud. When that dries, you won't see the sort of starkness of it, but it just highlights these little bits of detail for us. So again, I'm not going to do around the switches, we'll use a different technique for that. These little armoured latches here on the windows are in. The gap in the armour there we can do. Just so I'll do it right away with this. Oils you can do it a day or two later. This one you have to blend almost instantly. Just here. And those little rivets. I'm trying to think what else we need to do inside here. Remember, it's the edges you'll see. You won't see too much of this, so we can be a bit rough and ready. I bet that's off camera, isn't it? Annoyingly, sorry. I mean, this isn't working as well as with oils, but I've never, it's I'd rather do it live so you can see it can be a bit finicky than be one of these ones you say, oh, now it's done, and you haven't really seen. I've had a few little false starts with this. There's a little ridge on there, it'd be quite nice to get sort of highlighting on. I'm just going to lather it on around here, around these, so they stand out. Most of these are underneath the driver's seat, so not too bothered. And the deeper you go within the tank, obviously the more. I'll try and get some of the thick stuff off the bottom, and then we'll just go in into that area there. And I should have done that when I had the slightly thicker one earlier on. But again, when we dry brush this, that's going to be less stark. So I think we're about done on this phase of it. I don't know if you can pick it up. You can off camera where that's starting to dry. It's gone matte, and you've just got the faintest of black lines around those ridges. Then when we go over the top of those with a lighter colour to highlight them and get that artificial shadow thing going on, you'll see it. So what we're after was a subtle effect. It wasn't like this huge. Can you even see that? 'Cause it's all in the, this huge shifting colour. It's just putting a bit of artificial shadow where you need some artificial shadow. And again, that's drying off in this area now. So it's slightly highlighted these areas, but without going crazy on them. And we'll work on the principle. If it goes wrong, we'll just repaint the lot. It doesn't matter. And this one is drying off. You can just start to see we'll get that there's a bit of shadow there, and those rivets are slightly more pronounced. Okay, around that door, just slightly more, just that little bit of a, and it's doing it itself now. You can see how it's flowing. So these things probably a little bit around those rivets. So they'd accumulate grime and dirt because they're quite big. On these tie downs, we'll just put a little touch on those. This grill's starting to stand out a little bit more now. I don't know if you can again pick that up. You can see a darker inner face, which you would do because you're looking into the black hole of an engine cell. So it's not much. It is meant to be a gradual sort of. See how bits flowed just how I wanted it. Finally getting it how we want it now. So you're just going around these lines. And paint that, and it'll build up in the corners, but it'll also build up around the rivets in such a small area. Let's see what's happened there. So all this little toolbox has got a catch on it, so let's highlight that. Across the back there. Across the back there. Then, of course, the other areas, if you look at the suspension, you've got these little bolts and things here, so just chuck a bit in. This is going to get a lot more grime on it anyway, so we don't have to be quite as fussy on these, but we just want to get that flowing inside the springs as well. Then when we highlight the springs, there'll be a greater contrast. Oops. That's right, again, so you flood it, so you just dry the brush, touch it on, and the brush will pick it up. You have to scrape or rub anything, you just take the excess off for you. So that'll go in these ones, because they're going to be oily, grimy things, we can just go right in those sprockets. It'll shift the colour slightly, but it will cling to every little feature. Might have over washing up liquid, this actually is getting a bit foamy. But just give these overall washes, I might shift the colour that much. Bring out some detail later on. So that's really all we can do till that dries. Hopefully that made sense. So again, you can see on this bit of checker plate now, you definitely get a bit of a darker texture in the middle of that, where the wash is sitting on in the low points. Let's really lay that onto that one, because we are going to go. We're probably going to go over it with a lighter colour paint and with a pencil as well. So yeah, we're getting that effect where they're just standing out for us. And do that, so it's where it joins, you get a bit of a darker line. So yeah, I can't do any more until that paint dries, apart from wash my brush. So I'll be back. Let's see, just get that in there. I'll be back at some point soon, just to go over it with a lighter colour and just try and highlight some of the features, and then we'll put this bit together and paint the outside, then basically can do the same on the outside again. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll carry on this video. Then when we have it assembled and paint the outside, we'll do that separately. So this will ramble on for another 10 minutes. So thank you. Bye. We're going to see that, because it's all in this huge shifting colour. It's just putting a bit of artificial shadow where you need some artificial shadow, and again, that's drying off in this area now. So it's slightly highlighted these areas, but without going crazy on them. And we'll work on the principle. If it goes wrong, we'll just repaint the lot. Doesn't matter. And this one is drying off. You can just start to see we'll get that there's a bit of shadow there, and those rivets are slightly more pronounced. Okay, around that door, just slightly more, just that little bit of a, and it's doing it itself now. You can see how it's flowing. So these things probably a little bit around those rivets. So they'd accumulate grime and dirt because they're quite big. On these tie downs, we'll just put a little touch on those. This grill's starting to stand out a little bit more now. I don't know if you can again pick that up. You can see a darker inner face, which you would do because you're looking into the black hole of an engine cell. So it's not much. It is meant to be a gradual sort of. See how bits flowed just how I wanted it. Finally getting it how we want it now. So you're just going around these lines. And paint that, and it'll build up in the corners, but it'll also build up around the rivets in such a small area. You can see what's happened there. So all this little toolbox has got a catch on it, so let's highlight that. Across the back there. Across the back there. Then of course the other areas, if you look at the suspension, you've got these little bolts and things here, so just chuck a bit in. This is going to get a lot more grime on it anyway, so we don't have to be quite as fussy on these, but we just want to get that flowing inside the springs as well. Then when we highlight the springs, there'll be a greater contrast. Oops. That's right, again, so you flood it, so you just dry the brush, touch it on, and the brush will pick it up. You have to scrape or rub anything, you just take the excess off for you. So that'll go in these ones, because they're going to be oily, grimy things, we can just go right in those sprockets. It'll shift the colour slightly, but it will cling to every little feature. Might have over washing up liquid, this actually is getting a bit foamy. But just give these overall washes, I might shift the colour that much. Bring out some detail later on. So that's really all we can do till that dries. Hopefully that made sense. So again, you can see on this bit of checker plate now, you definitely get a bit of a darker texture in the middle of that, where the wash is sitting on in the low points. Let's really lay that onto that on, because we are going to go. We're probably going to go over it with a lighter colour paint and with a pencil as well. So yeah, we're getting that effect where they're just standing out for us, and do that. So it's where it joins, you get a bit of a darker line. So yeah, I can't do any more until that paint dries, apart from wash my brush. So I'll be back. Let's see, just get that in there. I'll be back at some point soon, just to go over it with a lighter colour and just try and highlight some of the features, and then we'll put this bit together and paint the outside, then basically can do the same on the outside again. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll carry on this video. Then when we have it assembled and paint the outside, we'll do that. separately. So this will ramble on for another 10 minutes. So thank you. Bye. Hi. I've just been looking at this in the edit, and it's going on and on and on. So I've decided to split the video at this point, so it'll end here where you see it, which is a bit abrupt, which is why I'm talking over a picture of the model where we're up to with it. And the next section will cover things like dry brushing, final assembly, putting the tracks on, and a little bit of detail painting. So we'll end it here, and then I'll almost simultaneously upload the next video, which will follow directly from this.